The information and data life cycles. Here, I wanted to explore the information life cycle, and I have this basic and simple image here from a small but powerful text of Floridi, and it represents a typical information life cycle. And the idea is that information has various stages that it goes through. So the first, the creation or generation stage, then there might be a collection, a stage, a recording stage after the collection, and then after this recording, there may need to be a processing of the information, and then there's a distribution and transmission, consumption, a recycle, and erasure, and so on and so forth. And this applies to information in various formats or kinds, but I'd like to expand from this simpler diagram to a more complex one that I find very useful, which is this one over here from iScoop. And I have shared this with you as well in some other ways. And here we see the complexity of the information lifecycle and the various processes and technologies that information, and more specifically, really data, in this case, go through. So there's the capture stage, and this may come from the capturing of information, and data may come from office documents, forms, rich media, microfilm, XML, or other kinds of information architectures as well. These are application created information and human created information. There are technologies for processing this input, document imaging, forms processing, and so on. And this processing usually will involve a classification or kind of indexing or categorization of the information. You can see here there are different areas or domains of information management, as we were talking about earlier. So there is a document management, and there's web content management, and records management, and digital asset management. And these usually are distinguished, and different departments or different people and different processes will address these different types of this management of these different types of data. One area or avenue that the information can go is to archive, and there are various types of technologies for archiving data: paper, film, optical, and others. And here, there's also a storage area of information. So these can be the common relational databases that we'll be talking about, or data warehouses, but also tape or CD-ROM or other kinds of magnetic optical technology. And the information or the data doesn't stop there. Once it goes to the distribution or the transmission or the delivery, there are different ways to think about it: layout versus publication. Is it published online only, or is it published in print? Different technologies also involved in these processes. There are issues of securities and digital rights that need to be considered when information is at this publication stage. And also there are various forms of distributions via the internet, via the web, via email, fax, and so on. I wanted to make a distinction between the information life cycle versus the data life cycle. And as I have mentioned before, so whereas the information is about the idea itself and carrying out the experiments and the cognitive processes, the data is about the record and the recording or the materialization of the information, of the idea. So if we take an example here, stage by stage, information life cycle has to do with the creation or the proposition of a hypothesis. For example, that electromagnetic radiation from cell phones can cause cancer. It's kind of an interesting but controversial idea. The researcher collects information about ER impacts on cancer on rats. The researcher stores information in the database. So this is the data. You can think of this as the data creation process, the first recording of the data. process, research things and discuss with others what the results mean. So that's processing the information that they're observing. Distributing findings are shared with other researchers via journal publications. Consumption results are read about and arguments are used by other researchers to refute or praise the work. And then recycling, other studies are done and hypotheses confirmed, negated, reinterpreted, or expanded by other experts in the field. So let's contrast that with the data life cycle. Now here, the research for the creation stage, research generates data records on study of ER impacts on cancer on rats, data organized into central database and location, that's the collection. The recording is, well, kind of like the creation in the sense, because the creation of the data is the recording of the data. Data records are stored in the same or other databases. The process, data about the study is processed and analyzed in computer software. So when we think about the processing of the information is more about the cognitive discussion and thinking, whereas the processing of the data is the actual processing of the computational technologies. Distribution data is provided for others to download and analyze. Consumption, other amateur researchers download the data for their own use. So once again, it's about the records themselves, not about the idea. Recycle, librarians and data managers fix issues with the data or the metadata to make data available to others. So there are overlaps, of course, but I think it's important to not confuse the idea with the data record. So here I would like to highlight both the information lifecycle and the data lifecycle. That's it for this one. See you next time.